It's Two on the Aisle with me, Charles Gross, and Leslie Hoban Blake. Tonight reviews of A Clockwork Orange, Mary Jane, Measure for Measure, Squeamish, and Time in the Conways. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Two on the Aisle. And good evening, Leslie.
Good evening, Charlie.
I am Charles Gross.
And I'm the aforementioned Leslie Hoban Blake, the historian of the Drama Desk. Here I am.
Yes. Time to make a little history in the theater tonight.
Indeed.
And we're going to start with...
We actually did make some with this show.
Oh.
It's The Clockwork Orange. And this is John O'Davies. And John O'Davies came with the show from London, as did a couple of the other guys, but not all of them. And he plays the role that Malcolm McDowell created in the original Clockwork Orange movie.
Right.
Now, I know you didn't see the movie.
Never saw the movie, never read the book, so this was really my first exposure to it.
And I have to say that if I had not read the book and seen the movie, I wouldn't know what the hell was going on. But having done so, I thought they did a wonderful thing. The book takes place the story takes place in a dystopian future in London. And this is very important in those projects that they have in London where they're not called, I think they're called council houses, but anyway, so they're very poor, but nobody's poor anymore. They've reached a place where they have pleasant things in their house, but the place looks like a project. It's all written on and destroyed and whatnot. And Alex and his droogs, which is his gang, D-R-O-O-G-S, his droogs, are part of this group that run around and do graffiti and do all of this. Now this is,
well, they do a lot more than that. They're a violent
No. I just wanted to explain, but you see, all of these opening things are gone. They're not in this play. What he did was to take out the heart of the play, which is that these are violent kids, and in order to try to fix the violence that they do, they're going to use Pavlovian scientific means.
Right. And you have the barest wisp of the plot. I looked up the story after I saw the show, and I actually did comprehend it a lot
afterwards.
Sort of. I realized, yes, I did understand, but it's the barest wisp of story. And if you're not familiar with the play, there's going to be trouble.
But Anthony Burgess, who wrote the book, created a whole language for these kids, which was half Russian-based and half English-based.
Well, that's
and then there was a glossary in the book.
And you know that they like Beethoven.
And Beethoven is very important. Is a character, a full character.
But, well, that's the problem. There are no full characters in this play. None of them are really developed. You get this homoerotic presentation with an occasional dash of psychedelic in it, and a lot of very handsome, very buff young men running around with their shirts off, which I'm sure you enjoyed.
But indubitably.
You get an amazing staging, but you don't get a play.
Well, but John,
and that's the problem.
In this sense. Jono is the most buff of all of them. He's twice the size of anybody else on the stage. And he's been on morning shows, and he shows the routine that he does, throwing tires from trucks around and whatnot. It's unbelievable. But what I wanted to say was it reminded me of Matthew Bourne, who's bringing over the Red Shoes. I don't know that we're going to get to see it. It's only here for 1 week. But Matthew Bourne could have done this. If Matthew Bourne hadn't done what he's done, I don't know that this play would exist. Because what you have is choreography. Instead of violence, you have choreography. And I was loath to go after going to 1984 and not liking it.
Oh, I love 1984.
I know you did, but I didn't. And so here we are on the other side of the issue. I loved this one, and I did because it took the heart of the story, which you don't know, so you can't know that. And the heart of the story is, and we're going to be showing that in the film sequence that we have, is when they put his eyes like this and make him watch movies because they know he loves movies. And so they give him aversion techniques to train him not to do violence anymore. And they play Beethoven whenever there's violent scenes, and Beethoven is his favorite thing. So it's horrible. I mean, really, if you think about what they're doing to his head. Now, this was from the 80s.
It is horrible, but this is a pretty horrible guy.
Well, yes. Oh, no, there's no question that he deserves
This is not a hero. This is not even an anti-hero.
I know.
You do not sympathize with him. You do not empathize with him. You don't like him. Maybe occasionally you'll feel just a twinge sorry for him, but not really. Maybe when he goes back to his old gang and they beat him up and he can't.
Right. And that's what happens. I mean, he loses because he was the alpha male. He loses.
Yes, he loses
everything.
that.
That's all he had.
And we don't care.
And in this, but again, it's like Mad Max.
Right.
In this Mad Max-like society, if you're not the alpha male, forget about it. So
Right.
that was his punishment.
That is my attitude toward the play.
Okay,
Forget about it. No story, no characters.
It was 90 minutes. It was very balletic.
Yes.
I found myself really enjoying it against my better
I certainly
judgment.
did not.
I know, but I just wanted to say that. And there are a bunch of guys, I'm sorry I can't really name all of them. I mean, I have their names here.
But we have to move on because we have a lot to cover tonight.
Right?
So.
But they're both American and English, and the show is running for another week or two. And I do hope you get to see it. I think it's well worth seeing, and if you know the movie, it's especially. And in today's world,
I think if you're not familiar with the story,
it's going to be difficult.
It's going to be very difficult.
Look it up
and again,
online first before you go.
But I do think a play should convey the story.
Yeah.
And even knowing the story, had I gone in, maybe I would have liked it better. Maybe
what would
not.
you give it?
I would give this 2 playbills. I was impressed with the staging.
Okay. Oh, and the staging was by a woman.
If
which
you're
is
Leslie,
very
or if you're
interesting.
that explains the buff men.
Oh,
if you're a woman or if you're gay, you at least have that.
Alexandra Spencer Jones.
But for us straight guys,
can you beat that name, Alexandra Spencer Jones, for the director's name?
Very
anyway,
nice.
I highly recommend it, and I would give it a 4.5 to offset your 2.
Not at all. Not at all.
There we go. So you're going to do.
Well, here is something that I really did like.
Which one?
This is off-Broadway. This is Mary Jane.
Ah, okay.
And this is Carrie Coon in an amazingly
She's an amazing actress.
nuanced, subtle at the same time, and all around. It actually reminds me of a very close friend of mine. She is a single mother with a horribly handicapped child. This child was born prematurely and has never recovered. Whoops! And has never recovered from it. I will have to get that at some point. And she is raising, she's in the city, she's raising the child. You see her going through all the red tape,
and she's
trying to keep her job,
to keep her
sanity,
her positive
Yes.
attitude.
Yes.
And she has a wonderful aide played by Liza Colon-Zayas, who tries to help her keep that positive attitude. But the play just goes further and further and further into the mishigas that she has to go through with the city and the agencies.
But it does it in a way, we see her frustration, even though she manages, you know, she all but sings Tomorrow from Annie on there. And all this hardship and how she goes through it, and we never feel that we're being beaten over the head with it.
No.
And that is what I love about the play. We feel the sorrow, we feel her pain.
Well, this is Amy Herzog, who also did Belleville down at New York Theater Workshop, which was about the breakup of a marriage. And it was so subtle that I didn't really know where the play was going. And suddenly I realized, oh, it's about the breakup of this marriage.
Yeah.
Wow, how about that? You know.
Well, I think you know where this play is going, or at least what it's about.
Yeah.
But the way it gets there, the way they take us on this journey.
But what it does to her, she's such a good actress that I worried for her. I actually worried for her.
Right.
To have
This
to
is
do this,
directed by Annie Kaufman.
Anne Kaufman, yes.
Anne Kaufman.
Yes. And it's a lovely, lovely job. And Amy Herzog and Anne Kaufman have worked together before, so they have a lovely rhythm together.
And a very good ensemble cast. Many of the actresses are playing multiple roles. I think there's this monk who shows up.
Who was originally played by Kathy Chalfant during a reading out of town.
Yeah, she could have come right after Wit. In the same outfit.
And this one looks like Kathy.
Yes.
What is her name? I don't remember.
I do not remember.
Well, she plays the monk. You would have that.
Right. Well,
I'm sorry. I don't have the playbill. I apologize.
I'm sorry. Liza Colon-Zayas, Dana Esperanza, Susan Parfor, and Brenda Weil, who played.
It might have been Brenda Whaley. Whaley, I think it's pronounced.
We'll flash it on the.
But she was superb.
Screen.
And we have photos of all of this. So.
And this is something I would highly recommend. I'm afraid you won't see half-naked men, buff men in it, but you will see a story. You will see an amazing performance. Drama desk.
Yes.
Let's remember this, please.
Carrie Coon. I mean, you don't really know her work, but
I don't.
She's done Fargo, and she was on Broadway in Virginia Woolf. She played the girl.
Well, then I do know her work. I saw that.
And then
certainly.
as soon as that was over,
she is so much better in this.
And then who played George in that? Remember the playwright? Tracy Letts. And as soon as the play was over, Tracy Letts married her. So, you know, he knew a good thing when he saw it.
Yes. And if you want to see a good thing, come and see this amazing production of Mary Jane.
Definitely a 4.
I would give it a 4, absolutely.
Yeah, very excellent.
Absolutely.
But it will rip your heart out, just so you know.
It will.
Before you go.
It will. And here's a play that almost literally rips hearts out.
Is this one?
This is Squeamish.
Oh. You're going to talk. You're going to.
I am. I'm talking about Squeamish. Okay.
Well, I will
yes, I am talking about Squeamish.
Okay.
You're right. Okay. Well, this is. Oh, you know what? No. I'm sorry. We're talking about Measure for Measure now.
That's what
we
I
will
thought.
get back to. We will come back to Squeamish.
We're talking
measure
about Measure
for
for
Measure.
First of all, you have to know something about Elevator Repair Service. Elevator Repair Service is the group down at the Public Theater that took apart The Great Gatsby for 6-7 hours and read the book and acted it out, leaving nothing out. Then they did the same thing with The Sun Also Rises.
Which was brilliant.
That was brilliant. I didn't get in to see Gats. You couldn't get in no matter what. By the time you knew what it was already sold out. They did one more. I don't remember what it was. And now the guy who runs it, Linklater, I think his name is. I could be wrong. I think I'm wrong.
Well, this is Measure for Measure, and it only runs about 2 hours
Collins.
with no intermission.
And lots of cuts. But what John Collins...
Yes, it just seems like 6 hours.
What John Collins, who runs the place and directed this, said was, you know what, we've never done Shakespeare, so that's how they got to this. And what they do, and what you'll see and what we're showing you is, some of it is traditional Shakespeare, and it's set in a contemporary time, so you can make your own evaluation of who they're supposed to be, you know, hint, hint. And, but some of it is real Marx Brothers, Looney Tunes, kind of...
Really?
They're aiming for it because that's what they do.
Miss.
And they miss. So that what you get is the story of Measure for Measure. Very briefly, is this Duke. It's Verona.
The Duke has basically said no more extramarital sex.
No more any kind of sex.
No, married people.
Yeah, well, married people. But I mean, he put down laws that were so. And
then he goes away, leaves it in his crooked cousin or relative, whatever, in charge. Meantime, crooked cousin blackmailing young woman to save her husband's life.
No. You see, that you came away with that. Actually, Angelo is supposed to be the height of like a conservative Republican. He's supposed to be the man who stands up for things, and it's his fall from grace because he sees this woman who's so gorgeous he cannot resist her.
Oh.
And back in the day, Meryl Streep and John Cazale did this in the park, and you felt every second of that, you know.
Oh, you feel every second of this. Every lumbering second.
I'm agreeing with you, Charlie, and I also have one thing to say.
And the Duke, by the way, the Duke who started the whole thing comes back. He disguises himself as a monk
and watches what his things
and at the end, the bad guy, his cousin or whatever, you know what his punishment is? He has to get married.
The woman that he has to marry is the woman that he was fiancéed to 2 years before.
Right.
And she's pregnant with his baby, which is the whole thing that puts Isabella's brother. Here's the plot, which I was trying to give very briefly. Angelo, who is this epitome of sanctimonious, what's the word I'm looking for?
Piety.
Piety, that's exactly the word, thank you. Piety is put in charge when the Duke leaves. Isabella comes in to plead for her brother who's been put in jail because a girl has gotten pregnant. His fiancée actually has gotten pregnant. She's not just some girl. Half the play takes place in Mistress Overdone's brothel.
Oh, okay.
All those funny guys are from the brothel.
Oh, okay. I missed the first couple of minutes, so that may have...
It's just, it should have been picked up and it wasn't, because you never see it as a brothel.
I thought that was an office or something.
Well, it's in an office, but they only have one set. Yeah. And the one thing that they do that's absolutely brilliant, but they've done it before in other shows.
They have a cute hooker.
Okay. Unfortunately, Isabella, I don't think is cute, and that's a big problem for me. Isabella was played by Rini Groff, who is herself a playwright of some note. And the note that she used in this was one note. She spoke like this, and all her lines were like this, and oh, please, my brother, and oh, this, oh, that, and I was like, what the, you know. So that killed it for me. And then he's going all over the place, like, oh, you're gorgeous, you're wonderful,
Look,
you know, come away with me.
We're coming off on shows like, not Measure for Measure, Midsummer Night's Dream in the Park, which was brilliant. As You Like It, which was decent.
This is experimental theater. You have to say, okay.
This was a failed experiment. Look, sometimes it works.
Exactly.
Like with The Sun Always also rises.
But
sometimes it does not.
They've never done Shakespeare before.
This did not work.
Some of their actors spoke Shakespearean. The Duke did. Angelo did on occasion. One or two other people did.
At the end, when the Duke finally is putting everything together and he's back as the Duke, then it starts perking up. But that's like the last half hour, or maybe at the most 45 minutes. And you've been sitting there for 2 hours waiting for them to get their engines moving, so they finally do, but then it's a little late in the evening.
I remember seeing Len Cariou, the original Sweeney Todd, play the Duke. And when he proposed to her, it was chilling because there's no reason. He's told her all sorts of terrible things. He's tried to have her brother killed, you know, and then he says, and you will marry me. and yet she does. But you don't get that feeling here. You get no feeling of imminent anything. It was a mess. It was
your conclusion.
Well, I did just want to say that one of the set pieces was that they showed the words, the actual script goes up and down on the sides of the screen at all times. So if you don't know what they're saying, you're right, not at all times. At hard times, when it's serious, then you see what they're actually saying.
So that you have something to do aside from watching the play.
Which is, you know, all right. Well, I'm not a stickler for. And by the way, we saw it right after the Weinstein blow up. So, because it's about, you know, that's what this is about.
Abuse, yes. It's the timing of the play, and they could not have known this.
They did, of course not.
Was amazingly appropriate.
Yes. So
and that was about the only thing about this production that was.
Wow, you know, that part becomes very, but however, all of that put together, I would give this 2.5 maximum. It's
not that, I don't mind experimentation, but this one didn't work, and I'm going to say 2. Now we're talking about Squeamish.
Yes.
And this was a play that was running during the Halloween season. Appropriate. It is the rarest of things in the theater, a horror piece. And it is very, well, it's graphic except that it's not.
Yes.
That all the violence is basically, it's Allison Fraser, who I have loved since she was in the original March of the Falsettos many years ago, and I've seen her in a whole bunch of things afterwards. And I love her as an actress. She's sitting in what I can only describe as an Alistair Cook chair. Her character is a therapist who's seeing her psychiatrist after having been off her meds.
In the middle of the night, you know, thank you for seeing me in the middle of the night.
Well, it has to be the middle. And the stage is dark.
Yes.
And she describes basically her nephew has died, nephew who she loved. She goes back, meets the nephew's girlfriend, and she becomes literally a human vampire. Because apparently the girlfriend was... They were engaged in this ritual where you suck other people's blood. She gets into it. She decides she likes it. And then it's kind of John Carpenter, Alfred Hitchcock.
Well, she also saw,
from there.
Who was it who saw her mother get killed? One of the characters, I was looking through the script, and one of the characters is talking to him about the fact that they found her in the bathtub, and the boy was leaning over her, drinking her blood. Was that one of the other characters?
No,
she plays several characters. According to the script that I looked at, she plays several characters, not just herself.
Right, she does.
So that must have been one of the other characters.
And she describes one of, you know, and she just, everything, it's graphic, there's a lot of blood, but it's all,
Edgar Allan Poe graphic.
But your imagination supplies it.
It's Edgar Allan Poe graphic.
And
in that sense.
It's very gross. And Allison Fraser, I felt her performance was very one note.
It was. Unfortunately, you know, that's one of the ones where no matter how short it wasn't short enough because of that.
Yeah.
I know you're coming up with a one-man show in the next session,
I'm hoping,
it'll be very different.
Yes.
But that's a problem for me too. And I mean, I've staged one-person shows. You know that I've written one-person shows. It's so important to keep, and especially when she's playing multiple people.
And when you have an actress who I am sure,
of her caliber,
under the right direction,
who
could
was the
have.
Director?
I don't have that. Let's see. Hold on. I will. Hold on.
So sorry, I don't have.
Hold on. Yeah, more. I think let's see. Aaron Mark, who wrote the play, directed it.
And he's written another one. The theater is going on from that one to another one.
And I am sure there are people who will probably sit there and just enjoy being grossed out, but this gross was not one of them.
Ooh. I would say this Blake wasn't Blake, but that doesn't mean the same thing. That was good, Charlie.
Well, maybe you wanted to Blake. Thank you. You wanted to blank it out of your mind.
Blank it out of my mind.
On that.
No, people say Blake, but it's blank, but it's Blake.
Yes.
So what are we going to give it numerically?
I think 2.5. I would.
No, I'm going to be realistic.
It kept my attention.
1.75 for her, and for nothing else, not for the staging, which was her staging was moving to this side of the chair and moving to that side
Well, it
of
was
the
like
chair.
Alistair Cook in Masterpiece Theatre.
Yes. Except I don't think he moved from one side of the chair to the other.
Well, they had different cameras for him.
That's right. So she played all the cameras as
Yes.
well. And I love her, just the way you do. I mean, I would have prefaced it if I started by saying how much I love her. And I knew her in the old days, and she is a lovely human being.
Yes.
And I'm sure this seemed like a great opportunity, but nah,
Well, it could have been, but I want to see her back.
Yes.
I absolutely want to see her back, but not in this.
No.
But again, you know what? I think there just may be an audience for her.
Okay.
I am sure there will be an audience
for her. Whether there's an audience for this
well,
play,
for this
is
play,
another story.
I think there might be, people who just like this kind of.
Well, I do think a lot has to do with the direction. I really think sometimes an author is not the best person to do.
Well, certainly
his
not
own.
in this case.
Yeah, it wasn't in this case.
But you know what? I
agree.
think even if it had been better directed, I'm not sure I would have.
you might
I might
be
have
right.
appreciated the production. I don't think I would have enjoyed the play.
I have to say, I like the script better than I like the play.
Okay.
That's what I can say.
Fair enough.
It read much better.
All right.
In my head, I saw things that I realized were not there.
Now
That's a terrible thing
here we
to
go.
do.
Time and the Conways.
Time in the Conways.
And this is, well, it marks the return of Elizabeth McGovern. Little known fact, Elizabeth McGovern, between her Brat Pack days and doing Downton Abbey, was made several theater appearances. She was in Shakespeare in the Park, in As You Like It, giving a wonderful Rosalind. She did something, I think it was the WPA with, Cara Sedgwick was also
Cara
in
Sedgwick
it.
was in that?
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was, though.
It was a long time ago. I don't remember.
Oh, it's in here,
it
I'm
involved a
sure.
traveling salesman, and both of them were interested in him.
Was it called The Traveling Salesman by any chance?
No idea. And so I really loved her as a stage actress. Here she is the matriarch of this British family. This play takes place in, I think, 1919 and 1937, and then it goes back to 1919. 1919, they're this rich, frivolous family. But I think
Well, they're not all rich and frivolous. She's rich and frivolous. One son is off at the war. One son is kind of like a
nonchalant.
He's a non-entity. He's more than nonchalant.
Well,
He's
he doesn't care about anything. He's whatever will be, will be. I'm happy with my remedial job. You know, there's one time in the play in the second act where we find out that it was something he actually wanted. This is Gabriel Elbert, and
Yes,
I have to
he's
say this is
Ebert, and he's wonderful.
He stands out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ebert. He does stand out as the brother. Elizabeth McGovern is all right. She's, I guess if you liked her in Downton Abbey, you won't be disappointed. But if you're expecting her to be the star, it's really more of an ensemble.
But it's the play that we need to talk about because
well, in the second act, we see them in 19 years later.
In 1937.
And what has become of them?
But the end of the first scene at this party, which I think is Halloween because they're dressing up, or maybe it's just.
I think it's just a party.
Just a party.
They're doing charades.
Yeah, you're right. It's charades. Okay. So one of the girls gets a feeling like somebody walked over her grave,
Right.
And she
well,
says,
that's Charlotte Perry as Kay.
And she says, "Did you ever think you could just sometimes look just around the corner and see the future?" And of course, that sets up the next scene.
Right.
And because this is done without the Act 1 and Act 2 are put together as one act.
Right.
This incredible set by, of all people, Derek McClain. This is not a Derek. This is not a Derek McClain set.
Well,
I'm used to
apparently
seeing
it
very
is.
sharp angles. No, I'm telling you, I was very pleased at the change. And so this set that we saw backs up, and the new set comes down and fits exactly in front, and it's all scrim, so you can still see the old set. And it's a brilliant way of showing that it's different.
Right.
And of course, everybody's older, and they're miserable, and they're unhappy, and the girl who was going to be a suffragette is now a spinster.
Well, she is a
she was a socialist.
Well, she's socialist, and she's still to an extent is. But interestingly, she's upset because her mother had not lent her the money to buy into a school.
Yes,
she is a headmistress.
Yeah, but she wanted her own school.
And she wanted it, and
the mother had the money but wanted to spend it on parties.
Right. Well, also on one of the other sons.
And on the favored son. There's a
yes.
favored son who becomes an alcoholic.
Yes, that's Alfredo Narcisco, I believe.
No,
I'm sorry. Matthew James Thomas as Robin.
Right.
And there's Stephen Boyer as the nerdy.
Yes.
Who marries one of the girls and becomes a real jerk along the way. But here's the question.
No, he becomes a rich jerk along the way, which
he
is
was
the
always a
important
jerk?
thing. He was always a jerk.
Okay.
But he becomes a rich jerk, and then he becomes mean and pushes everybody.
Here's the question. At the end of that, they go back to 1919, and we see not all, but some of the seeds.
Right.
And here is my
Exactly.
question, because at one point you say Kay is thinking she has this premonition. So, did 1939 really happen?
37.
Yeah, sorry, 1937. Is this really does this really happen, or did she dream it, imagine it?
Does that matter to you?
Yeah. Yes. I'm
Okay,
curious.
no, I thought the play
Because-
was sufficient unto itself.
Because
I didn't
in
need
this,
to.
well, the way they have her reacting in the final scene, I think Rebecca Teichman leaves that open. Most people think, no, this is actually what happens to the family, but I want to entertain the prospect that maybe it won't necessarily
Okay, well,
happen.
that's interesting that you got that all that. And here's
Yeah.
the thing: Rebecca Teichman won the Tony and won the Dramatist Award for Indecent. And what she did to show the past in Indecent, the ways that she showed things, both physically and with little things like the sand coming out of people's sleeves, touched my very soul. I swear to you,
Right.
they did. This play didn't touch me, and I was very disappointed. I thought, there's going to be a past, and she'll do something. What she did was fairly standard. There's nothing wrong with doing fairly standard. It's just that when you've done something brilliant and you come back and do something standard, it's unfortunately like Julie Taymor, whom we're going to be talking about later as well.
Actually, not
this time,
year,
but soon. But I just, so that disappointed me. The play is, J.B. Priestley had read a book about can you see the future, the premonition kind of idea, and so it gave him the seed of an idea for a play.
Right.
I think he tried to put the story of what the book tells into something dramatic, into a form, rather than letting it be organic, so that everybody had to sort of play their appointed roles, and I didn't feel that they were real people. That was my problem.
Okay,
And that's in the play.
I certainly did.
Okay.
In the 1937 act
Okay,
area
well.
of it, they're a lot sharper. They're a lot
serious,
more defined.
right.
Well, they have to be. In the first act, they're frivolous, but they have their dreams, and well, dreams don't always come out as you would
I said
hope.
Derek McLean did the set. I'm sorry, it was Neil Patel. My apologies. I'm so sorry, Neil. I'll come down and buy you a coffee. Excuse me.
Okay.
Whoa, how could I do that?
All right. Well, fortunately, we got that, and maybe that's why it wasn't that different type.
No,
type of set.
now I can see why. But
Right.
what are we going to give it?
Well, I'm going to give this 3, maybe even 3.5. I think 3 is probably more accurate, but I did enjoy it. Again, I think what you say is valid,
Thank you.
but
That's high
it
praise,
does,
indeed.
and certainly I think Elizabeth McGovern fans will be
She was fine.
satisfied, if not overawed.
We never
It's
finished
not-
talking about Stephen Boyer, who was in Hand to God. He was the boy in Hand to God, which is why he seems so familiar. And here he is playing this guy who comes in, and he's all hunched over, and thank you so much for letting me come in. And he gets the girl he wants because he finds a way to make money. And then he's a rich guy.
Yeah.
And they all need him, and he could care less about any of them.
Right.
And that's a wonderful. I love that.
Well,
role.
they do treat him shabbily.
Oh,
but he's
worse.
but he's not a great person.
Like, who knows what he might have been?
That's true.
He's not formed
That's true.
when he comes in.
Okay, and that is our show for this evening. What is your conclusion on it? How many playbills?
I'd go 3.
Okay.
I'd go 3.
And that is our show for this evening. And when you go to the theater, look for Leslie and me, us too.
On the aisle.